If you're building your ABA company and you're tired of guessing, this is for you. We built the EBCBA blueprint to give you real structure, systems, and support without the fluff. Details are in the description.
All right, we're live. So we have done what, like 24 of these webinars, Josh, with providers, ABA therapy providers that are helping with credentialing, with billing, with starting up your ABA practices, practice management systems, all this. And Josh and I, we've been going through these webinars and doing all this stuff, and we realized a couple weeks ago, we have not done anything for our specialty, which is the email security, all of your device security, your compliance stuff, making sure that you don't get hacked, that you don't get whacked by a HIPAA violation or a state health department violation or whatever. So we figured we would throw this together for you guys to start giving you guys some good content based on what our expertise is, and making sure that you have some tools and resources to use to make yourselves more secure. So before we get into this, my goal here is to make sure that you understand the importance of this stuff, kind of understand the background and context of what's happened in recent history and why this was important before, but it's extremely important now, right? And what's changed there. And then also give you some things that you can walk out of this webinar or stop the recording of this video and go and do right away. Right? Whether it's jumping on a conference call with your team, sending out an email to everyone, just, hey, let's cover our bases, whatever that might be in the context of your team. I want to give you something that as soon as this is done, within 5 or 10 minutes of work, you can actually make yourself more secure for $0. So that's the goal of this. And then to move on from there, looking at other options to make yourself more secure in the future. So that's the goal of this. I want to make sure that you have tools, that you have the knowledge, and you have the understanding, the background, the context. So how to spot modern phishing and BEC. We want to make sure that you can see what the stuff is before it harms you, right? We want you to see it coming. So a little quick history. My background is I am the CEO of WOM Technology Management Group. Everybody asks us what the WOM stands for. And 100 years ago, when we got started, it was really 2008, 2009, we went by word of mouth because 90% of our customers just came from referrals, right? So some of them would, get a business card from somewhere or whatever, but it was usually just a word of mouth referral. So the WOM is kind of a throwback to our original company name. It's still our original company. We just have a doing business as, or DBA, for WOM Technology Management Group. So I refer to myself as a co-founder of our ABA Business Challenges group, because our CXO of WOM Technology Management, Josh, this was his brainchild. He is the founder, that guy right there. So he was the one that really started to put all this stuff together. And it was an inspiration for him from a lot of the peer groups that we ourselves are involved in, and the resources and the knowledge that we gain for everything from, business growth to business management, new tactics, new products, things that are out there that we can make our business better with and make our clients' businesses better with. So we have a lot of those peer groups that we were involved in. We've been involved in for years, and we kind of figured out that there's nothing really out there for ABA business leaders. So that's where Josh just said, hey, let's start our own group, right? So, and this started in October of 2023. It's now the end of June 2024, and we've got almost 5,000 members. It's over 4,500. I think it's getting close to 4,600. So the growth of this group has really been outstanding, especially considering the size of the ABA market to begin with. So I consider myself the co-founder. The real founder of this group is Josh. So round of applause for Josh. Thank you. All right, so let's get into some things that we've seen happen in the ABA community. I just hung up the phone with a member of our group who is not a customer of ours. She's never really done anything with us yet, but Josh actually received a phishing email from her email, reached out to her and said, hey, I noticed this fake OneDrive link that came directly from your email, and it's actually from your email. You need to check into this. And she said, yeah, we had Geek Squad out here. They are resetting passwords and fixing some stuff. She goes, but after they left, I still can't send or receive emails. And when Josh told me that, I got on the phone with her right away. So as soon as this webinar is over, I'm jumping on with her because that's not a complete job. There are probably still hackers in her email that she doesn't know about. And they're going to be real quiet and real calm now and see if she doesn't notice what's going on. But basically what they do is they put rules in the back end of your Microsoft or your Google or your whatever email server you're using. And basically, she's not receiving emails because those emails are getting forwarded to them, right? They're receiving her emails right now. That's my suspicion anyway, right? So this stuff happens all the time. We get multiple calls a week from businesses needing an incident response because their email has been taken over. We get multiple calls a week from, or multiple calls a month, really, probably from ABA businesses who have experienced some kind of a data breach or a business email compromise. And this is important stuff, right? So this is happening in the ABA market. I'm going to explain why. You guys are a target, and there's a reason behind that. So I want you to understand that stuff as we go through this information. So what is it that somebody could actually do if they gain access to your email? So one thing you have to remember is your email is your key, your professional email, right? Your professional email with your company domain on it should be everything in your professional life and often is everything in your personal life as well. So when I say it's the key to everything, think about how you log into your practice management system, your banking, your cloud files, Dropbox, things like that. Think about how you're accessing these other assets. It's generally with an email address and a password, and that email address hopefully is your professional secured email account. So even HR management platforms, password management systems, where you have a password vault, your iCloud, things like that, they're only as secure as those email accounts that you're using. So because if somebody gets access that email, they now have the key to all of these other systems. So let's talk about BEC, or business email compromise. This is what happens, and it's generally a result of a phishing email. So usually it happens when a user clicks on a link in an email, they open an attachment in an email. The link could install software on their computer. The attachment could install software on a computer that allows remote access to a bad guy or start sending information out to a bad guy. And we often run those tests in our penetration test that we do for our ABA group for the $97. That actually simulates like, okay, if somebody clicks on a phishing link, what will they see, right? And then we show that to you so that you can start buttoning things up and cleaning things up on your own. So highly recommend that. But the initial attack happens because one of your team members sees an email, they click on it, they try to open the attachment, they click on a link, and it either downloads an attachment or takes them somewhere that they shouldn't be, like a fake Microsoft login page or a fake Dropbox login page or a fake Gmail login page, or name any vendor, a fake login for anything from banking to even your practice management system. Somebody could fake that, right? So once they go to that place and they type in, they're trying to log in, they're entering their email and their password. Now that information is being transmitted to the bad guy. So that's how this starts. And when somebody gets access to your emails, they start using that to start gathering other information or try to compromise other email accounts that are either in your organization or what we refer to as downstream, right? Meaning they can email out more phishing emails to other users that are downstream from you. Good example, young lady today that Josh received an email from her, recognized that it was a phishing link coming from her email. Josh was downstream from one of our ABA Business Challenges group members. She got hacked. Josh was downstream from it. He recognized it, notified her. She was kind of aware of it to some extent, and is in the midst of a response, right? So that's how that happens. And as that infection, so to speak, occurs in one place, it starts to proliferate elsewhere, right? To vendors, to clients, to employees, what have you. It starts to spread from there. And all of the fallout from everybody else that gets hacked is centralized on you, the business owner. You're the one that's responsible for anybody who gets hacked downstream from you. That's just how that's how the laws are written. That's how the regulators are trying to fix this. And we'll get into that a little bit more. So what are some common BEC tactics? We want to talk about how these people are catching your team and you. They're going to impersonate often executives or vendors of your company. But one example of another ABA was the family lawyer for the ABA owner was impersonated. He was actually hacked, and they sent an email to the ABA owner from his email account at his family law office, right? So they'll impersonate a vendor of yours, somebody you already have a relationship with, and you see, oh, hey, so-and-so sent me an email, let me open this. That's what happens. They'll also impersonate executives. So they'll impersonate you to your employees if they can gain access to your email, or if they can get a domain that looks a lot like yours, right? Sometimes even if they get just a free email account and just put your name on it. Sometimes they're that lazy, but they still catch it, right? They'll still catch some people on that. And the statistics say that about 20% of people will click on phishing emails. 20%. Like, that's a pretty good return rate, right? They'll also use requests for urgent wire transfers or sensitive information. They'll ask for something quickly, right? Especially if they're impersonating an executive of your company. We've heard of CEOs' emails being hacked. They have some social engineering going on where the hacker has figured out this email belongs to the CEO. We also have the email address for the CFO. So we'll just send an email from the CEO to the CFO commanding them to immediately transfer $50,000, $100,000 to this account because I'm in a meeting. We're trying to close this deal, get this money transferred. That happens all the time. Okay. Other wire transfer changes would be like, getting into your email, sending information to your payroll company, and redirecting payments for your employees' payrolls to fraudulent accounts. Email account spoofing and compromise. Again, that's the two different things. They can pretend to be somebody two different ways. One way is by taking over their actual email, which would be a compromise. Spoofing would be faking that they're coming from that email, meaning they're just masking the email to look like it's coming from that person in whatever way they can, either getting a fake domain that maybe is a 0 instead of a O, or a Cyrillic Russian A instead of an actual A. Looks really close to your domain, but it's not. That's spoofing, right? Kind of impersonating the email account without actually taking it over. So a few years ago, it was really the goal of a cyber criminal to get money from you directly, right? So they wanted to get credit card information. They wanted to get your banking information. They wanted to get your personal information to steal your identity. But that's not the case anymore. And that still happens, but that's not really where the cyber criminals sort of butter their bread, so to speak. So let's talk about why cybercrime is so profitable now. Number one, let's get right down to what data gets used for and how they make a profit. Identity thieves use personal data to commit identity theft, right? Simple enough to understand. Businesses like yours hold large stores of data. You guys have a lot of information about a lot of people. Even if it's a small practice, you guys have hundreds, if not thousands, of records that are valuable to those identity thieves, right? So hackers and identity thieves are really they're cyber criminals both, but they're two different kind of entities, right? It's two different roles in that cybercrime community. Hackers like to steal the business data, then they post it for sale on dark web marketplaces, and then identity thieves purchase that data. Then they use it to go steal identities, right? So that's how this cycle works. And it's important to understand where you fit into this, right? So really where you fit into this is based on where regulators are focusing. We know that identity theft is a huge problem. We know that business cybercrime, ransomware, extortion, that kind of stuff is a huge problem. What do we do about it? Well, we know where all this stuff is starting, right? Business email compromise, so on and so forth. But that number 2 point right there, the fact that businesses hold large data stores, is what regulators are focused on, because it's nearly impossible to catch identity thieves. It's even more impossible to catch a good hacker, right? So the only way that regulators can make this kind of thing stop or slow it down is at the business, right? So this is where the updates for the HIPAA high-tech rules are coming out. They were supposed to be out last year, and we're halfway through this year, and they're still not out. But all these state laws, all the regulations related to keeping personal data safe are directed only to businesses, and that's why. we're the only controllable ones. We're the only ones who can be told what to do and will actually listen and will actually suffer penalties if we don't do what we're supposed to do, right? So how did all this start to evolve and take place? Because, cybersecurity has always been pretty important, but why is it so important now? And the simple answer is the pandemic literally changed everything, right? Things have completely changed since 2020. Our cybercrime has been kind of steadily growing since the, mid to late 90s like this, right? Businesses get attacked every now and then. It was kind of a rarity. And when 2020 hit and everybody lost their jobs, that statistic started to skyrocket. It hockey sticked, right? So the main reason is a lot of people lost their jobs. They had nothing else to do. A lot of people panicked. And a lot of people started to figure out that being a cyber criminal is really not that hard, especially since everything in the organized cybercrime world kind of got commoditized to the point where you can just go on the dark web and hire a hacker for $400, pay him with Bitcoin. It's largely untraceable. You can hire them to hack your former boss or your ex-spouse's company or whatever, because you have insider information. You can provide them with some ammo, some social engineering, maybe a social security number or a password here and there that they might be able to use to hack them, and they'll split the take with you, right? They'll literally pay you a commission to help them hack somebody. So it's basically the only requirement now to be a cyber criminal is that moral flexibility, right? The people who can sleep at night after completely ruining somebody's business or completely ruining somebody's life. If you're okay with that, you can be a cyber criminal in about 45 minutes. So what are the silent killers that are out there? There's a couple different ways to look at, what your business is going to need to address, right? We have major exposures that make you highly vulnerable to all kinds of cybersecurity threats. So I always use the example of, when we run our penetration tests, I always say this is basically what a 14-year-old kid could do if they decided to become a hacker 2 weeks ago. These are the tactics that they're going to use when we test your system initially, just to see like, hey, let's make sure that your major exposures are cleaned up, right? What we also look at is complete lack of protection in certain areas, right? Not having MFA turned on, not having event logging turned on, and other breach protections that need to be in place, right? So one of the big things with, like in your Microsoft 365 tenant, and this is why we recommend using Microsoft 365, but then also completing a baseline and an assessment and a baseline project to make sure that all the proper things are turned on in your Microsoft 365. One great example is event logging, making sure that your Microsoft 365 tenant is recording all the things that are happening, the logins, the logouts, the emails sent, the emails received, all that good stuff, because it makes your forensics a lot easier and a lot less expensive. We had a client that we went in and we did some work for. They didn't want to do all the security stuff. They said, just here, set us up with, our computers and we'll handle our emails. We'll take care of that stuff. But, just handle the IT stuff for us. Right. And everything was fine for about a year. And then they came to us and they said, hey, we've got a problem. Our email's been hacked. Okay. What's our situation? Right. 400 or 500 emails had already gone downstream. They had taken over the office manager's email account. What really saved them a lot, they still had to spend a whole bunch of money on forensics and incident response and all that. But what really saved them probably $40,000 to $50,000 on that response. And this is for a 10-employee company, right? Like 8 employees exactly. What really saved them a huge chunk of change is the fact that we initially helped them set up their emails when they took it over and their office manager was, managing their end users and their multi-factor authentication, everything. When we did the initial setup, our baseline requirements are that event logging is turned on. So there's a lot less research necessary on the forensic side because we had logs of everything, right? So even though it wasn't managed by us, it was still set up properly and configured properly where they had that to fall back on. Also, keep this in consideration. The risk of financial loss from something like this is huge, from lawsuits from downstream people or your clients being hacked because of, identity theft, or, them being hacked with their businesses, if it's vendors or other people downstream. HIPAA penalties from the state health departments, and then the direct business costs, right? extended downtime, which could be weeks to months. Imagine running your business without having any access to your practice management system or your emails for weeks because the detective squad is in there doing their investigation. You can't go back in until they're done, right? You're legally obligated to handle these responses properly, right? And sometimes they take months. We had one in November that lasted until January because they were completely unprepared. They literally had to go start up a whole new email account, still had to fight for their old email accounts because of retention laws. They still had to get all that data back. So they had to keep fighting for that while going off and completely starting over with a new email domain. So the recovery, the notification cost, having to go out and inform all of the people who were downstream from you or anybody who was in that system when it was hacked, that a bad guy may have seen their name or their address or something. You have to notify all those people and you have to prove that you notified them. So you have to use a notification service like Expedia, that's the travel website. Experian is the credit bureau. They have a whole division that just does small business breach notifications, and their minimum is like $45,000. So it can really start to stack up on the expenses for recovery notification for costs really fast. And during our assessment process with any of you guys, we always do a breach notification calculator that will calculate those costs for you. If you ever want to dig into that, it's on IAPP.org. You can go there. That's the International Association of Privacy Professionals, right? It's a nonprofit worldwide organization, and they have some breach cost calculators on there. So I would encourage you to look at that, look at your practice management system, look at your email inboxes, estimate how many records you think are in there, and kind of do some calculations, because it's better that you know as much as you possibly can, right? So there's lots of money in cybercrime, and these guys are as serious about their profession as anyone is. So if you just take what ransomware criminals, not cybercrime, but just ransomware, if you take what they have collected over the last 15 or so years, you're talking $6 trillion. So if they went and started their own country, they would be the third richest country on the planet, right? And remember, this is mostly starting with business email compromise, where they lock down your computer, you can't get it into your files, everything's encrypted, and now they have your information, and also you don't have your information, right? Even if you have a backup that you can restore, you get your data back, great. You still have this problem where a bad guy also has your information, right? Your client's data, their date of birth, their social security numbers, their health insurance information. And in the ABA market, you're talking double or triple, because it's not just your clients or your learners or your patients, however you refer to them. It's also their guardians, which is always one and sometimes two. So you're talking either double or triple there, but we'll get into that more. So essentially, if they were their own country, the three richest countries on the planet would be United States, China, and ransomware. This is also projected. I've heard a couple different things. We're going with the low number. I heard 10.5 trillion by the end of 20, and I've also heard 8 trillion by the end of 2024. So if you do the math on that, we had about 12 years of ransomware. It was kind of when it was kind of mainstream to do $6 trillion, right? Which is a lot of moolah. So we had 12 years, $6 trillion. That's an average of $500 billion a year, right? But now we're at the point where we're talking about $2 trillion a year, right? So that's that hockey stick, right? Where the rate is quadrupling on an annual basis. So let's start breaking down to like some self-analysis, some stuff for you to think about. What do you actually know about your business, your exposures, what cybercrime means for you, what your place is in all this, right? So the first thing to think about is like, how prepared are you to deal with an actual data breach or a cyber attack, right? Knowledge is power, and nobody needs more power over their business than a business owner, right? And we can't assume what we don't know about, right? We need to make sure that we know what we can know, because what we don't know can absolutely hurt us. So when you're looking at this stuff, keep these things in mind. And a couple quick things I want to explain. There's the term breach and compromise that often get confused. And the easiest way I've found to explain it is a compromise is you've dropped your keys in the parking lot when you're walking into the grocery store. You dropped your car keys, your house key, your mailbox key, your office key. They're all in the same key ring, and you dropped them in the parking lot by accident. That's a compromise. That's a hole in your security. That's something that could be used against you, right? So that's essentially a compromise. A breach is when somebody picks up those keys and goes to your car and opens the door. Or they pick up the keys, they go to your house and they open the door, your office, what have you. They actually use those keys, right? So a couple of things that I want you to think about on a scale of 1 to 10, how prepared are you to handle a cyber attack or a data breach? When you come in tomorrow and you can't get in any of your stuff, your email's been taken over, you find out they've been logging into your practice management system, they've been logging into your bank account. How prepared are you for that, right? Because this stuff is scary. It should scare you, but it should also motivate you to do something about it and start preparing yourself. Start thinking about, contingency plans. How do I respond? How do I get my team mobilized to start working against this threat? How do I prepare myself ahead of time to make sure I'm ready, right? Because you need to be ready because this is happening all the time, especially to ABA companies, anybody in healthcare, especially in pediatric healthcare. So consider, what do you think is your biggest threat to your business? Like, what is the biggest problem, your biggest sort of weakness, right? What is the biggest threat to your business? What happens if you come in tomorrow and your bank accounts are drained? Right? Most of us have multiple business accounts to run our business, but you're going to have that main operating account where everything is. And oftentimes that main operating account is at the same bank that your savings account is, your rainy day fund, right? But if they get access to one, they can probably get access to both. So what do you do when you roll into the office and somebody says, hey, my payroll check didn't go through this weekend. What's going on? And then you look, you realize you're overdrafted or check, payments are bouncing. This is not a good thing. How are you going to respond to that? What if your PHI of your clients actually did fall into the wrong hands? How are you going to handle that? And then finally, what are you willing to pay to get your business back? Because once something like this happens and somebody gets into your email and they have administrative rights and they get the owner's account and that owner's account has global administrative rights and they get into your bank account, they get into your practice management system, essentially that bad guy now is in possession of your business, right? It's very hard to get it back. It's very expensive to get it back. So what is the amount of money that you're going to be willing to pay to get it back, right? So these are all things that I want you to think about and consider. And don't be afraid. Just make good decisions based on what you're prepared to handle and what you're not prepared to handle. And if you're not prepared to handle something, get prepared. Just work on it. So one of the things that we've noticed that drives me nuts in this industry, in my industry, which is IT cybersecurity compliance, is that I see many business owners spending good money on tools and technologies, and you still find yourself not secure or compliant. Okay. And one of the major problems with this is that IT companies love to sign up their customers for all kinds of tools and subscriptions and, these neat bells and whistles that are going to give you really a false sense of security. And the problem is the overwhelming majority of like the ABA providers that we do our like our penetration tests or assessments with, they think that they have all these things in place. Multi-factor authentication, encryption, encrypted emails. Oh, we're on GoDaddy. We have the HIPAA compliant plan. So that's HIPAA compliant. We're good to go, right? And we run a penetration test, do an assessment, figure out that literally none of this stuff is working, right? Like my little guy in the picture here, you got a bunch of ladders, but you're not using them properly. So they're really not helping you get over that wall, right? So I'm talking about people who are serious about their security, finding themselves, wondering why they're having these outages, why they're having slowdowns, why their data has been leaked. Why is this happening to me? I had all this stuff prepared for it, right? I was ready for all this, or at least I thought I was. And I've seen business owners who have spent tens of thousands, and in some cases, hundreds of thousands of dollars preparing themselves for, or thinking they're preparing themselves. And then they find themselves negotiating with a hacker on paying a ransom, right? And really the biggest problem and the most annoying thing when I step into those situations is when the IT company who has been selling them all this stuff for all these years just kind of shrugs their shoulders and says, hey, sorry, nothing we could do about it. Life happens. So let's talk about your layers of defense. And I asked earlier on a previous slide, what do you think your biggest threat is? And I can tell you right now, it's you and your people. It's that outside human layer. Because no matter what you do on the inside, it's all going to be dependent on people. Somebody is going to have a password. Somebody is going to have global admin rights. Somebody is going to have to be sending and receiving emails. And sometimes even, good phishing filters and spam filters, sometimes hackers can get past those, because if one of your vendors is sending from a whitelisted account on your spam filter and they send out an email, that will still get through. Okay. So your people understanding the context of how bad guys are trying to take you down is probably the most important part of your cybersecurity, right? And that's why HIPAA requires security awareness training. So right now, for the purposes of this presentation, we're going to focus on this outer layer here with humans. We're going to talk a little bit about your other perimeter stuff like multi-factor authentication, encryption, things like that. But mainly, we want to focus on this because this human factor, you can walk out of this webinar, talk to your team, and increase your security posture just by having a good, serious conversation with them about this. Right. So that's really the biggest effect that you can have right away, and it doesn't cost you a dime. So these business email compromises almost always start with a phishing email. When I say almost, it's more than 92% of the time. So what can we do? Number one, make sure that you're learning to recognize what a business email compromise looks like, or a phishing email looks like. When you're getting into that, you want to learn to recognize any of those phishing emails that are coming in. And you also want to learn to recognize what a business email compromise looks like, right? So just from our conversation over the phone with the young lady who had a business email compromise, Josh was downstream from it, saw a phishing email. It's coming from a legitimate source. They've been compromised. I can recognize this, right? But that also came from his ability to recognize a phishing email in the first place, right? So if it's a phishing email coming from a legitimate account, that legitimate account has been compromised, right? So having your team in a place where they can recognize things like that are going on is going to make your outer perimeter, your human perimeter, much stronger. So train your team. If you see something, say something. Everybody should have open communication about anything weird that might have happened on their network, anything weird that's happening on their email, anything that's happening on their local systems or their computers. A lot of us have personal devices that we're using to access email. If somebody's personal device gets hacked, they need to say something, right? If they have access to email or any other systems on there, this Central Reach app, anything like that, that compromised device could compromise that system that it's connected to. So what does a phishing email usually look like? What does it smell like? Well, it smells fishy. So these are the things that should set up red flags for you or any of your team members when you're looking at emails. Weird sender email addresses, right? So if it's coming from somebody that you don't recognize, or it's coming from somebody and it's usually their first name at their company and now it's their first initial dot their last name at their company and something's going on there strange, beware, right? They could have gotten access to the administrator rights on that account, created another account that nobody sees yet on their side, on their administrator side, and they could just be impersonating that person, kind of spoofing them internally, right? They could have a similar domain to the person that you would normally recognize, like changing out an English A with a Cyrillic A, like I talked about earlier, or an O with a 0. So these are the kind of things that you need to look for. Look at the actual sender's address. Generic greetings and lack of personalization. It's really hard for non-English speaking people sometimes to write a good email. So you'll notice like little language differences, and they kind of try to keep it simple and straightforward. And there's some nuances to this that we're going to go over on a further slide. And that also goes back to a lot of times these are people that are in Ukraine, China, Russia, wherever. They're not regular English speaking or English writing people, so they're not really familiar with how to translate things. they'll use urgent or threatening language. It'll be a message from the FBI that you're going to go to jail if you don't call us back, if you don't email us back, or what have you. You know, the FBI is not going to email you something like that. They're just going to show up at your front door. I see this happening with the sheriff's department. My wife got a phone call from somebody impersonating a sheriff's deputy, an actual detective, with using a real detective's name from our real local sheriff's office, right? So this is the same kind of thing that happens with emails. Unexpected attachments or links. If you're not expecting an attachment from somebody, or you don't have verification that they're going to be sending you something, don't open it. Like, it's as simple as that. If it's an unexpected attachment or an unexpected link, do not open it. And that's a great rule to just give to your team right now. If you receive an attachment from somebody and you're not expecting it, call them or just delete it if it's not that important, right? Do not open attachments and do not click links unless you are expecting them and they're in a good context, right? Now, let's talk about why some of these things are completely wrong or kind of nuanced. Suspicious sender email addresses are not going to be a thing if you are downstream from a business email compromise. It's not going to be a suspicious sender email address. It's going to be coming from a contact that you actually know. Okay, so this is something you need to be aware of. Generic greetings and lack of personalization and this poor grammar and spelling mistakes. Guess what? These people are using AI to write all this stuff now. So even if you're not good at writing in English, you can write all kinds of jumbled up French or Russian or whatever, and ChatGPT will convert that to a nicely written English email. Right. So some of this stuff is nuanced and you still have to pay attention. You still have to pay close attention. So the reason I'm showing you this is not just like a set in stone thing. You have to start building some instincts in yourself and in your team. And that takes constant ongoing. It's a culture that you have to build in your company to make sure that people are aware of this stuff. Right. Gamifying it is the best way I've seen to make it happen. Right. Ongoing training. We have training that goes out every week to all of our secured clients. And they're like little 3-4 minute videos, and they turn it into a game, right? You get a score, you get a ranking in your company on how well you're doing on your phishing emails. And then the last one here is unexpected attachments or links. Sometimes they are not unexpected. In the case that I mentioned before, we had a family lawyer sending an email to an ABA owner. It was a motion for contempt of court over alimony payments. The ABA owner was expecting this attachment from this lawyer, but he had been hacked for so long that they had been watching his emails. They knew what was going on with his cases. When they sent her that email, it had the case number on it. It had a link to OneDrive. Okay. She clicked the attachment with her case number on it that she was expecting from that lawyer and opened it. And they installed a remote access Trojan, meaning they had remote control of her computer. The bad guy did, right? Then she went and clicked on the OneDrive link when that attachment wasn't opening properly. She wasn't able to see the motion that the lawyer was sending to her to read, right? So she went to the OneDrive link, clicked on that. Now she's typing in her Microsoft credentials. Now they have control of her computer and they have access to her Microsoft 365 account, right? The next thing she did was that she forwarded that email to her partner, who then tried to open the attachment on her computer. Hey, this isn't working. I can't get into my OneDrive. Can you look at it here? And then she did the same thing. So they take control of two owners. They took a control of 100% of the ownership of this company's local devices on Thanksgiving break, no less, and then got into both of their emails. From an email that was expected with an attachment that was expected with the case number on it and a link to accompany it. So it was completely within context. Well, what would have stopped this? What would have stopped it would be if the owner hadn't been checking her email on her personal computer, and if they had the proper security measures set up on a company computer for her to check her emails on that wouldn't allow for that remote access Trojan, that wouldn't allow for her to click a bad phishing email that should have been filtered out a long time ago. So these are ways that you can still get through that human layer where you still need additional layers of protection beyond just the human, right? But even so, focusing on your team, focusing on your training, and making sure that they know how to spot phishing emails, this is going to help you guys out a lot. I'm hoping that this webinar prevents $1 million worth of business email compromises. So, all right, so let's look at some of these. These are mainly from the pandemic, because there was a lot of this stuff going on back then, focused on the coronavirus notifications from the CDC, a lot of fake domains that were really close to governmental agencies, spelled slightly different, right? So, is this something that you're going to click on, right? Probably not. Like, these are pretty easy to spot, right? Here's one with a link to a download. So when you click on this, you're expecting to download the safety measures PDF, right? Now, in all likelihood, when you click on that link, it's going to take you to a website that tells you here, log in with your Microsoft account to download the file, right? And then they're going to take your Microsoft login or Google or what have you. Here's a link to a communicable disease management policy. You click the link, it takes you to a bad website. It could either install something on your computer or give you an opportunity to enter credentials that they should not have from you. So those are some pretty generic kind of emails and pretty easy to spot, but you can kind of get the point from that. And these are not going to be about COVID either. The bad guys are very good at staying up on current events and knowing what's hot, what's trending, what people are actually going to click on. So just remember, there's always going to be a carrot or a stick, right? It's either going to be a stick. If you don't respond back to us, the IRS is going to put you in jail, or the FBI or your local sheriff's department, whatever. Or it's going to be a carrot, like, hey, check this out. We have this great opportunity for you. We have these great resources for you to go and download. We have some kind of tax return that you need to file this paperwork for, but it's always going to be urgent, right? My favorite isn't a carrot, but it's close. It's pizza. If we're dealing with, like, some of the ABA companies, if we're dealing with a situation where there are kids in the building and there are caretakers of those kids and they have email addresses, one of my favorite fake phishing tests is to basically take the local Domino's pizza and say, hey, Domino's and Microsoft are partnering up, and we want to give your school, with the name of the school or the name of the ABA Therapy Center, we want to give your class a free pizza day. All you have to do is go here, log in with your Microsoft account, and redeem your coupon. And I'm telling you, in the context of this webinar, you're thinking, you got to be pretty dumb to click on something like that. I get good results with that phishing email because it's a carrot, right? The caretakers care about their kids. They want those things. They want to bring that in, whether it's a school or a church or what have you, an ABA therapy center. Like, they want to do good things for the kids. So there's that carrot there, right? But hey, this expires this Friday, so make sure that you log in time. And it's Microsoft and Domino's, and we're doing this, we're participating together. So click here, put in your credentials, and then we'll send you your coupon. And they're hacked, just like that. So another good point that we wanted to cover is the distractions that happen from working around the house. We live in a much different work environment, and we work in a much different environment. We live in a much different world now. And a lot of people are working from home. I'm at my house right now. I've been doing this since like 2012, but a lot of people, this is a new thing for them, right? So you have all these distractions going on around the house. And there are new items that get our attention that didn't get our attention before. So we're kind of split, right? My brother just showed up at my house, and I can hear him in there playing with my 5-year-old daughter. So you've got these different things that weren't happening in the office space before. And it's a lot more difficult for people to focus in on those things, right? So is also something that will kind of give a bad guy an opportunity to exploit, right? So, hey, this is our new work from home policy. And this is an example of spear phishing. So catching somebody who's working from home, it's very easy for cyber criminals to figure out, those hybrid companies, who's working in offices, who's working from home, how their, network topography is set up, or how their employee topography is set up, right? Who works for who, what that hierarchy is. They can go on LinkedIn and figure most of this stuff out. But, for a lot of us, we got to have LinkedIn. It's kind of a necessary thing for us to be available, have our information available to future employees or future clients, families, right? So we want them to be able to learn about us. Well, hackers can use that same information to learn about you too. And they figure out that we've got some people working from home, and they go in and they impersonate someone that person's going to trust, like their boss or a coworker, or supervisor, or something like that, and say, hey, this is our new work from home policy, and they give you some little link like that, right? So same kind of format, maybe copy their signature from an email that they've seen before, make it look just like it's coming from that person, but it's coming from a bad guy. Whaling, so that's spear phishing, and that's coming from somebody that you know or trust, right? Whaling is more directed at somebody who has the ability to wire large sums of money. So from HR or from the CEO or from a board, the president of the board, to the CFO, here, I got to make this payment or we're going to lose our access to our practice management system, or the billing company is going to shut us off and we're not going to get any reimbursements from our insurance company if we don't wire them this money. Here's the amount and here is the wire transfer address, right? This is where it needs to go to. Well, I've seen millions of dollars lost this way. And the best thing that I've found to fix this is that set a cap for the most amount of money that you're willing to lose in a wire transfer, right? For me, it's like $1. Anything that's more than $1, like don't send anything anywhere. It's a pretty simple policy. Nobody's allowed to transfer any money anywhere, period, right? That kind of takes care of it. Also at the bank, nobody can make any transfers out of these accounts unless it is me and I'm sitting in front of you and I show you my ID. We can't call on the phone. We can't do it online. We can't do any of that stuff. So making sure your policies are set up that way with your financial institutions is definitely also good, right? So that's kind of getting outside of the technical solutions that you need to have in place and getting into kind of the common sense stuff and that human factor again, right? Getting that outer perimeter where it can't even become that big of a problem in that specific context because it's just not allowed to happen. The final thing here I'll leave you with is the eyeball to eyeball policy between CFOs and their bosses, right? Anybody who's allowed to transfer money in your company, they must be eyeball to eyeball with you or with their boss who's requesting the transfer. Otherwise, the transfer doesn't happen. And nothing is so urgent that a company is going to be required to wire a huge sum of money right now, especially in the context of the cybercrime being what it is these days, right? They're all going to understand, like, hey, I'm not in the office, and we have a policy where they literally are not allowed to wire any money unless I'm standing in front of them. So you're going to have to wait 10 days, and then we'll wire you the money. Trust me, they'll figure it out. These policies are not going to kill your business, right? So the person who is allowed to wire funds, if it is an unexpected wire transfer, if it's out of the ordinary, and it's a request from their boss, that request is rejected unless they are eyeball to eyeball in the same room, not on FaceTime. AI can spoof that. Not on text message. That can be easily spoofed, right? It's called smishing, right? SMS, but it's phishing on SMS. So they can fake your boss's phone number. They can fake your boss's face on FaceTime. They can fake your boss's voice on the phone. This is reality now, right? So eyeball to eyeball. We haven't gotten good at making a whole person yet and impersonating them, or doing like the Mission Impossible Tom Cruise thing where they put the contact lenses in and have the rip off mask there. So eyeball to eyeball in-person authorizations for wire transfers over a certain amount of money. Make that a policy as soon as you stop watching this webinar, and then you will be that much more secure and that much more safe. Second part there is go to your bank, tell them shut off any wire transfer capabilities unless I or whoever else is allowed to do those wire transfers is here in person and shows you 2 forms of photo ID, period. So clone phishing. So this is the type of phishing that you see all the time. It's a little easier to spot, but it's still very dangerous. Like, hey, real quick, here's your Amazon order. It's on the way. Click here to view the status, that kind of stuff, right? So they'll take an email that maybe has gone out to multiple users, and they'll doctor it up a little bit. They'll change a few things that make it look exactly like the email that comes from Amazon, but they'll change where that little click here goes, right? So your original email from Amazon would look just like this. The new one looks just like this. That's coming from the bad guy. It's the where this goes that changes, right? So the bait is something that gets you to take action, whether it's a stick or a carrot. It's going to have some certain characteristics to it that you want to make sure that you are looking for, right? So what do the stick or carrot, what these phishing emails, the way they're structured, all invoke certain things that are all common. So this is really how you start to identify a phishing email. Number one, they always have great bait. Number two, that great bait is going to involve something emotional, right? Whether it's either positive or negative. Either you're a winner or you're going to be a loser if you don't do this, but it's going to invoke some sort of emotional thing. So when you get an emotional email, sign number one, it could be fake. Sign number two, urgency. You have to do this right now. You don't have time to think. You have to respond to this. You have to make this transfer. You have to get this done. I'm stuck in an airport. I'm in a Nigerian prison somewhere and I need bail money. I'm on vacation in Mexico, and often they're actually in vacation on Mexico because the hacker has checked their social media and seen Facebook, Facebook photos of their family, right? I'm stuck in Mexico. I need you to wire me $50,000 right now, right? Those kind of urgent things is what's going to pop up. And they're usually believable, right? The reason that counterfeit money works is because people believe that it's real. And the same thing goes for phishing. It's going to look real, right? Now, some of them are silly, but even when it does look real, you have to make sure that you're pausing for a beat, right? So why is it that people actually fall for this crap? Number one, we're all distracted, right? All the work from home stuff. We've got a million different things going on. We have families, we've got kids running around. We've got my brother in there making more noise than he should be while I'm trying to do a doggone webinar. But you've got all these different things are moving around and we're distracted. Okay. We're rushed. We're trying to get tons of stuff done. We're stressed out from it and we're tired. We're fatigued, right? We're starting to doze off at the wheel at the end of the day. And then that's when they're going to hit you. And it's going to hit the hardest when you're in that position where you're tired, right? And you see this email and it's from the IRS or it's from the CEO telling you to transfer money, right? And then we're all anxious, man. I deal with anxiety day in and day out, just from natural anxiety. It's not even a clinical thing. It's just all the things that are moving around, all the things that can go wrong running a business, right? So we're dealing with all this stuff. And then when you get sideswiped with some silly phishing email that normally you would catch, normally you would never fall victim to, you click on something and you're hacked. So let's talk about what we can do. Make sure that your team knows who is going to provide updates. It's going to be hard for the bad guys to figure out who on your team is responsible for what. And if you kind of shuffle the deck around a little bit, and if it's your office manager, you're going to release information about new healthcare benefits or whatever to your employees. Make sure that you're kind of keeping that stuff private, right? Don't put too much information about what your employees do and what their roles are in your company on places like LinkedIn, right? Or Indeed, even posting a job description that's public that people can see. Don't put too much information on there because they can take that application, match it up from an archive on Indeed and figure out, okay, this is the person who took this job. This is what their roles are. Let me socially engineer them and use their position to impersonate them. So identify who will give updates to your team and where that source of information is going to be coming from, and also train them to verify that it's actually coming from that person. Make sure that somebody who can be easily contacted at all times, right? So when updates do come out and you send emails out to your team, make sure that you're available to verify those over the phone, right? Yep, that was actually me. That is coming from me, right? I'm telling you to click on that form and fill it out and submit it for the health insurance updates, right? That kind of stuff. Share stories with your team. Tell them about the ABA, the stories that I just shared with you guys, the ABA company that got hacked and the FBI is investigating them and they're probably going to lose their business over it, right? They've been shut down for months, had to go open up a new email domain, and they're probably still going to go out of business, right? Tell them stories like this. It's not just about you keeping your job or you potentially getting fired over clicking something. It's literally something that could shut us down. So make sure they understand the seriousness of this. 20-second rule. This isn't the 5-second rule from college. I know you guys all have master's degrees and PhDs, so you know what college is all about. And the 5-second rule is one I used heavily when I was in college. But the 20-second rule is more about pausing for a beat, let everything settle, right? Let the dust settle. If you're looking at an email and it seems urgent, seems emotional, it seems like a big carrot or a big stick, and you're distracted, stressed, rushed, anxious, tired, what have you, give it 20 seconds. Lean back, cross your arms, look at the email closely, think about it. If you're not expecting it, if it's really urgent, or it even seems fishy with a PH, give it 20 seconds. Think about it. Pick up the phone, call the person. Did you send me this email? No, I didn't send it to you. Boom. You just caught a major business email compromise, and you probably are going to inform that person that you called that they've been compromised and help them start their incident response. So that 20-second rule is huge. So another thing we can do is remember, and this is a two-part series on why Derreck says that there is no such thing as free. Free Wi-Fi is often the yellow brick road to an attack, right? It's going to open you up to all sorts of infiltration that is really just unnecessary. So think about the last time you connected to a free or public Wi-Fi, hotel, shop. A lot of companies are actually broadcasting, internet service providers are actually broadcasting free Wi-Fi, right? So it'll say Xfinity Wi-Fi or Comcast or Spectrum Wi-Fi, and it'll just be a public broadcast, or even when you're out on the road somewhere, they got broadcasting from telephone poles with access points, cell phone towers, and all kinds of stuff. You connect to that, and you think you're on their Wi-Fi, but you're not. You're on a bad guy's Wi-Fi, and he's basically scraping all the information that's running through there. It's another way that somebody can gain access to your email, gain access to your practice management system, right? So in that context, let's think about why you're going to be connecting to a free or public Wi-Fi. There's no such thing as free. There's a cost to it. And in this case, the cost is major, major risk. So you're going to be going on a public Wi-Fi, so you can send an email. You need to log in some session notes. Maybe you're doing in-home therapy. You're on your way home, and you know your kids are going to be wild when you walk in the front door, and you need to get this note done. You stop at the coffee shop and do it there, right? Banking. You need to stop by. You need to do a bank transfer, or log into your HR stuff, get your payroll done. Maybe you're on vacation with your family. You just need to get some quick stuff done at a stopover. You're at Cracker Barrel. You jump on the free Wi-Fi. You do a couple simple, quick things, but it's going to involve something important. And that's when they get you. So no mas on the free Wi-Fi. So this is the way the free Wi-Fi gets taken down. It's actually very simple. There's a little device called a flipper, and we use these for penetration testing, but you can literally order this on Amazon. They're less than $200, and there's a little adapter that you plug into the device that comes in this box. This isn't the actual device, obviously, but this will actually broadcast a Wi-Fi network. And you can make it broadcast any Wi-Fi network name that you want. So if you're sitting in a Starbucks, you program this little guy to broadcast a network called, Starbucks Wi-Fi, Starbucks guest Wi-Fi, whatever. So when people come in, they sit down and connect to the Starbucks Wi-Fi. They're actually connected to this. And this is connected to a laptop or a phone that's connected to the internet. So you're connecting through a bad guy's hacker device. It's going to scrape all kinds of information about you, about whatever transactions you're making online, and you don't even notice it because you're connecting right to the internet, right? So this is the kind of thing that you really have to watch for. And the best way to do it, the best way to deal with this is, like I just said, stop connecting to free Wi-Fi. Do not do that. There are ways you can do it safely, but if you do not have a really good security system set up, a SASE network, Wi-Fi tunneling, or Wi-Fi protection, tunneling, all that good stuff, which you probably don't have if you're watching this, do not connect to free Wi-Fi. Are we clear? Don't connect to free Wi-Fi. Alternative, pull out your phone, connect to your hotspot. At least you know where that device is going, right? Connect to your hotspot, right? Make sure it's not iPhone. Name it something unique. Make sure that you're connected to your device and not somebody else's sitting next to you. All right, more about there is no such thing as free. Free email, while free Wi-Fi is a yellow brick road to a cyber attack, free email is another yellow brick road to a data breach. If you want to have your data breached, I can tell you right now, the best way to get it done and get it done fast is to use a free email at Yahoo, at Gmail, at Outlook, anything that's at not your domain, not you. Okay, as soon as I see an email that is so-and-so ABA at gmail.com or Yahoo or Outlook. I know that is a ticking time bomb, right? Now, why is that? And remember, if I know it, hackers know it too. They look for this stuff. They literally look for businesses that are using free email accounts. Think about what you're using your email to access, right? We talked about your email being the key to everything. You're getting in your practice management system, your HR software, your bank. Everything is accessed by email, right? So if I'm a hacker, what am I going to do if I see your business has a free email account? I know the limitations of Gmail and Yahoo and all these places, and I know their vulnerabilities because they're pretty widely exploited, right? It's pretty common knowledge. And again, your 14-year-old niece or nephew can be taught how to exploit a Gmail account in about 45 minutes. Not that difficult, right? The free Gmail accounts. And these bad guys are going to actively look for companies that are using domains like Gmail or Yahoo that aren't theirs. And that just paints a giant target on your back. So what can you do about this? Don't use free email accounts. I had an assessment with an ABA owner today. She has 2 or 3 accounts that are on Microsoft 365, and that's just her admin stuff, right? All of her employees, meanwhile, she has like 17 employees, they're all using their personal emails at work. This makes me very nervous. I will lose sleep tonight over this, okay? Because that AOL or Yahoo or Gmail account, when that gets hacked, that lady's going to lose her business because that is going to give that person access to her entire practice management system. And her employees are using that email account to log into their practice management system, okay? I've got a couple complaints about the practice management system industry. One of them is the fact that they even allow you to use an unsecured free email account to log into their systems. It is bananas that they even allow that to happen. And then the second thing is not providing administrative unlicensed accounts, which is a whole different topic that we'll get into. And I'm actually going to be posting a petition for you guys to sign about that soon. So getting back on track, do not use free email accounts. Thank you. You need to use a professional email that is directly from Microsoft 365, and it needs to have your domain, right? So you need to have a website domain that you have control over, because there are certain protections that you can put in place to make sure that other people can't impersonate you. They can't spoof your email, right? They can't send from your email account without actually having access to it. Also in Microsoft 365, there are a lot of things that can be done to make sure that they don't get into your email account, right? So these are things that are not available on Google Workspace, even the professional stuff. These are things that are not available through GoDaddy, Microsoft 365. These are things that are not available through free email accounts like Yahoo, AOL, Gmail, what have you. So get a direct relationship with Microsoft 365. Get anybody who has any access to any company data using an email with your domain on it to get into that information. That's the only way that you can control your situation and your cybersecurity posture as a business owner. Once you have everything in your Microsoft 365, implement strong password policies, put requirements in there. Make sure that they're a certain number of characters. I prefer 12. On my company, we use 32 because we have a password vault and they're really long string passwords that I don't know. And I misspoke there. We require 32. On Microsoft, we require 12 characters, but also multi-factor authentication. And we require that they use the Microsoft Authenticator tool. You can't just use any authenticator. It has to be Microsoft's Authenticator, right? So we can have a shorter password that's easier to remember, but a really high requirement for our multi-factor authentication, that second layer there. And then finally, you're going to be able to control in that Microsoft 365 tenant from where your emails and files can be accessed. And this is getting into some more deep stuff, but building your foundation on a Microsoft 365 tenant is going to give you the ability to implement some things that are going to drastically reduce your surface, your attack surface, right? The area that could be penetrated by a bad guy. It's going to drastically shrink that down. right? They're going to hack a lot more layers to get into your Microsoft 365 if it's set up properly and you have some extra layers around it than it would if you're getting it from GoDaddy or if you're setting up on a Google Workspace account. So I want to wrap this up. You guys are always welcome to reach out to myself or for Josh. Talk to us about this stuff. Book a call with us. We're always here for you. And if you want to do a basic email assessment, just run through like, hey, here's a scenario. What can I do with this? How do I work it? We don't charge anything for this stuff. We just want you guys to be secure. If you decide to hire us to do something to make you even more secure, great, fantastic. But in the meantime, you're in the ABA industry. We need more ABA therapy available out there, not less. So we don't want you guys getting hacked. Anything we can do to help you along your way, we're happy to do it. Click this link, scan this QR code, book an appointment with us. We'll help you kind of talk through what your specific scenario is because everybody's different, and we'll help you figure out the best way to do it. So thank you guys, as always. Josh, thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you.
You're already doing the work, investing your time, your energy, and your vision. So let's make it count. Build something that works without breaking you. The ABA-CBA Blueprint is the way. Get started for free with our foundation course.